Yo, what's up guys? John Boogle here. Today we got the Manic King Dragon updated guide, Draconian, Deadly. Let's hop into the lineup explanation. Now this is pretty much an all traitless stage. The only non-traitless enemies here are the floating moths in the beginning, so do keep that in mind when constructing your lineup. Of course, we're going to dive into unit roles like we are for all these updated Manic guides, as breaking down the lineup into unit roles will give you a stronger idea of what units to replace if you have units that could fulfill the same role. Now this is one of the few Manic stages where we're going to be utilizing cat combos, and of course you don't have to use the exact same combos, but try to aim for the same buffs. In this case, we're utilizing a defense up combo because our unit levels are much lower, as the recommended level for your units I recommend in this stage is 30 plus. We're at the absolute bare minimum at level 30s here, so if you are using higher level units, you probably won't need double defense up combo or any defense combos at all. I would recommend just going attack up combos instead. The bonus of using the defense combos is a Bahamut could get an extra hit, as well as being able to utilize attackers like Cyborg and Cameraman as part of the cat combo. But once again, if you have higher level units, just go attack up combos. It'll be way better. Or if you want to be really insane, you can even opt in to go up for movement speed combos, which increase the movement speed of your units, which can actually help a Bahamut get in there very consistently and get a lot of hits. So main takeaway here, if you're using the bare minimum of level 30 units like we are here, I recommend double defense up combo, or even just one just helps out tremendously. If you have higher levels, then I recommend attack up combos and or speed combos, which is very specific to a Bahamut, but that is the main strategy here. But we'll dive into more strategies later in which the attack combos are just way better. Now let's talk about the meat shields for this stage. Now the level of your meat shields doesn't really matter here too much, other than Manic Eraser, which should be at level 20. If your regular Eraser is high enough level, you could only rock with 2 meat shields in this stage and just bring an extra attacker, but our Eraser here is only plus like 14, I believe, so we gotta bring the help with Haniwa here. You can also just use Manic Eraser and Haniwa as just your 2 meat shields, but you'll see with level 30 units we actually do struggle quite a bit against the auto waves, so having 3 meat shields just helps out a lot if you're lower leveled like we are here. Now let's talk about what units you need to deal with those pesky autos, because they are truly the boss of the stage. Once again, level 30s what I recommend here. That is the absolute baseline. Higher than level 30 is recommended for this stage. Our cameraman here is level 31, Cyborg level 34. As for what attackers I recommend here, I recommend high DPS ranged attackers. AoE recommended attackers like Cyborg, Cameraman, Pizza Cat, UFO. By now you should know the list of the general key gacha attackers. If you have any anti-traitless attackers, of course use them in here. They will work very well as long as they have a decent range and good stats. Brainwashed UFO, for example. Of course, if you have any of the Epic Fest Ubers, you could pretty much sweep by in this stage with no issue at all, and have at least one attacker that is able to get consistent damage on the Manic King dragons, whether that be an extremely long range unit or Uber like Cyberpunk, or just a cycle rusher like a Bahamut. Balrog also works, Yukimura. If you have some tankier attackers as well, then you can use them here. Things like the Chimeras, even Manic Island can work here, but cycling damage with a Bahamut is just way safer, or just using a unit like Cyberpunk, which can just sit back and outrange all the units. Just know your main threat in the stage is the autos, so preparing for those is ideal. Otherwise, any other rusher can work here, like Fishman we're using here just for the beginning, but you could also use it to cycle some chip damage as well if it's high enough level. Can as well can get a hit at a high enough level, but it also does help with the auto waves as well. Usually high single target damage isn't the way to go in this stage, but can is the exception, especially if you have the bounty talent, which will help you out a lot. But that pretty much wraps up the lineup explanation. Let's now hop into the strategy explanation. Power-ups I'd recommend for this stage is Sniper Cat power-up or just a Rich Cat if you struggle here in the beginning, but these mods only come out at the beginning and their sole purpose is just to give you a nice cash boost, so you don't really need Rich Cat or Sniper Cat. Just be aware if you are using level 30 units without Fishman, it could be quite troublesome to actually kill the mods here in the beginning. I had many test runs where without Fishman I was just not able to kill the mods in time, so if you are using the bare minimum, just keep that in mind. Now the way this stage starts can catch people off guard because you do get rushed by the mods and a single auto in the beginning, and the Manic dragons actually spawn in a boss wave on a timer. So what this means is if you're not able to take control of ground quick enough and maybe not kill the mods, when that boss shockwave happens, you get knocked back behind the base, then everything just moves forward and you die. So make sure early in the stage you're covering a lot of ground because you will lose quite a big chunk of it when that boss shockwave happens. Now the way you want to play this stage is around the auto waves. There's 2 auto waves that continue infinitely throughout the stage. The initial auto wave happens at around the 1 minute mark, and every minute or so after that, that auto wave will repeat, and 2 minutes into the stage the second auto wave initially spawns out, and once again that is also on a minute interval between each wave, so they're about a minute apart from each other, which gives you a really tight window to get damage. That's why units like Cyberpunk and other units that outrange the Manic dragons are just so crazy for this stage. But essentially the strategy is play with the auto waves, lure them out of King Dragon's range. Of course, you don't want to give up too much ground because it's really hard to fight back that ground, especially if you're not able to cycle in your A Bahamets properly. But lure the auto waves slightly in front of the Manic Dragons, enough to where your attackers aren't getting hit by the King Dragons, but they're still able to get hits on the autos. Once you're in that sweet spot, that's when you have to absolutely try and burst them down as quick as possible. Now, cash management is a real thing in this stage. If you just spam your attackers every single auto wave, you're gonna run out of cash very quickly. So send out just 2 to 3 of your attackers. Maybe if you're starting to get pushed back, send out 1 extra, but you'll kind of have to find the right balance with your unit levels to where you have enough attackers on the field to efficiently take out the auto wave while also not spending too much cash, and of course letting the next auto wave arrive. So yes, the key to this stage is efficiently taking out the auto waves, which can be rough with the lower level units, but after you kill the auto wave, you have to keep in mind of that internal timer. If you have one going in your head, the next auto wave is already on the way. So if you don't take that opportunity to get that free damage in once there's no autos in cycle, then you're gonna have a rough time in the stage. That 1 minute window is such a tight window, but A Bahamut is truly the GOAT for the stage because even if you spend the maximum amount of time taking out the auto waves, even if you have just a few seconds left, 1 A Bahamut cycle can save you. So what we do, we take out the auto wave, lure them out, wipe them out. Once the coast is clear, that's when we send in A Bahamut to potentially get a hit, even multiple, on the Manic dragons. Then we reset, repeat the process again until A Bahamut is back on recharge. Saving your cat cannon for when you push with A Bahamut is ideal, just so you can guarantee at least 1 hit, which is what you want to aim for. If you're real precise with your timing, you can even use the cat cannon to get an extra hit with A Bahamut by knocking back the Manic dragons, allowing your A Bahamut to just rush in again. This is where the unit speed up combos help out tremendously, but that's a whole other lane because with level 30 units, there's no way you can go by in the stage with speed up combos. You're way better off using defense up combos or attack up combos. If you're using a waiver in the stage, you can use the autos as leverage for your waiver to actually hit the Manic dragons. A very common way to do this is with the Manic Macho legs, and it does help out quite a lot. That guaranteed chip damage goes a pretty long way in the grand scheme of things for this stage. In the same way, if you have LD units, you can use the autos here as leverage for them to actually hit the Manic King dragons if their LD reaches far enough. So there is some bonuses to keeping the autos alive a bit longer than usual if you are using units like waivers or LD units. Otherwise, your main source of damage is going to be just this, cycling a Bahamut on the Manic King dragons in between each auto wave interval, because as long as you're able to do that, you shouldn't really have an issue with this stage at all. Of course, the main issue is the auto waves. If you're not able to efficiently kill them, then you're gonna lose. While you may not lose instantly, the next auto wave you're gonna have even less cash, then the next auto wave you're gonna have no cash, and eventually you're just gonna get overrun and die, because the damage knockbacks with a Bahamut is truly the only way you could get some ground back in the stage, with this strategy at least. So if you're constantly having to lure and take out the auto waves and barely taking them out each time, and you're not able to cycle in a Bahamut every chance you get, then you will eventually lose enough ground and you will start getting pinned behind the base. So in a way, it's very similar to Manic Flying, but it's much easier to take back ground in the stage compared to Manic Flying, where in Manic Flying, your only source to take back ground was with a Sniper Cat power-up or Sniper the Deadeye, which can work in here as well, but it's not as great because there's 3 Manic King dragons, not 1. Now, for even more technicals, ideally, it is better to have the Manic King dragons attacks synced up. This way, it's much easier to time in a Bahamut or your rusher you're using. Just keep in mind, this means Manic King Dragon is going to have a much easier time pushing forward if the attacks are synced up. Because when the attacks are synced up, it's all hitting the same unit at once, which means your meat shields aren't going to be able to tank, they'll just get one shot every time. So it is a double-edged sword of syncing up the dragon attacks to get your A Bahamut easier cycles, but you're also slowly losing ground as time goes on, as you can see. But of course, we're using double defense up combos here, and that allows a level 20 Manic Eraser to actually tank a hit from Manic King dragons, even if they are synced up. Now, of course, if there's a peon in the way, Manic Eraser will die, but looking back at the footage, it's actually multiple hits Manic Eraser is able to tank with a defense up combo. That's another reason why Manic Macho Legs is very underrated in this stage, because just clearing the peons, getting that chip damage is such a huge thing for all of your other units. It allows a Bahamut to have a clear path every single time. You get the chip damage, your Manic Erasers aren't getting one shot. Of course, Courier can work here the same way, as its LD will be able to hit the peons when these autos are stacked up. And if your Courier is level 40, you can even time it in and get hits on the Manic King dragons as well. But you can see here, slowly over time, we're slowly losing cash each auto wave, and we're losing ground. So you won't really win the endurance battle unless you have some very tanky meat shields. Your best defense is your offense in this stage. A Bahamut will truly be your best way to get ground back, and if you're just not able to time it in, or you struggle using a Bahamut in this stage, then I just recommend using Cyberpunk and other longer range units, which we will cover in the second example run. Now, the stage is not over once you kill these initial 3 Manic King dragons. Yes, I say initial because there are more that comes out when you hit the base. Yes, there's a very common cheese strategy for this stage, but I don't really cover cheese strategies. But after you kill these Manic King dragons, you essentially do have to pull off half of the cheese strategy. You do not want to hit the base unless your A Bahamut and or rushers are on recharge. Ideally, you'd also want to wait out an auto wave so you have the best chance to just destroy the base before you get pushed back and have to deal with another 3 King Dragons and sit in the stage for 10 minutes plus just fighting King Dragons again. So when the coast is clear, your rusher is recharged. When you're about to hit the base, just send in your rusher. A Bahamut, of course, will be able to take it out with ease, being rebounded and going into the attack animation once again over and over again. Of course, if there's an auto wave in the way, then there's a good chance you won't destroy the base, but that's why I said you want to actually lure out to the auto wave first. Let's hop into some more example runs, then we'll wrap up the video. Of course, the one and only all-powerful Cyberpunk is an absolute unit for this stage. You can also see how much of a struggle it is to kill these moths in the beginning here without Fishman with level 30 units. But the strategy with Cyberpunk is pretty much the same. the autos are your biggest threat, but this time you absolutely have to kill the autos before they reach your cyberpunks, because essentially cyberpunk will be your main source of damage here. Chip damage and crowd control, though the crowd control isn't really necessary here. If you don't have any other rusher or any other unit to do some chip damage, this will take a long time, so just do keep that in mind. That's why I much prefer using a Bahamut in this stage. Even though cyberpunk is so broken in this stage, you'll just spend a way longer time if your only source of damage is cyberpunk. That's why I said earlier that Manic Macho Legs is very underrated in this stage with its chip damage and ability to clear the peons for your rushers to get clean hits as well, because that chip damage does add up over time. You can see here, even with cycling Balrog, this took such a long time. This was a speed up of 900%, but using your most powerful attackers to just protect your cyberpunks is the most safest way to play the stage. You can argue a Bahamut is a much safer strategy because you have guaranteed damage if you do cycle your A Bahamuts correctly. It's much quicker as well, but this way you're able to fully focus on just the peons while cyberpunk can just carry the rest. But you can see in this example we're using the one and only Dark, just showing that if you have any Epic Fest Ubers, they can completely destroy the stage. A very great way to actually protect cyberpunk without spamming attackers and potentially losing your cyberpunks is using a Bahamut. You could use a Bahamut to just cycle on the autos. Yes, it's not really cash efficient, but it does work. You could essentially pair both of the strategies together, and this is essentially just a guaranteed win for the stage, as long as you have strong enough attackers to handle the auto waves. But once again, you have that bailout of a Bahamut. If you do happen to run into the situation where your cyberpunks are in danger, you need a quick unit to get in there and do some nuclear damage, a Bahamut can do that job well, though it is an emergency button type of strategy because you won't really have the cash unless your attackers are high enough level to where you could efficiently take them out every single wave. But that essentially wraps up Manic King Dragon, a Bahamut, truly the MVP for this stage. Drop a like if this guide helped you out, subscribe if you're new, join the hashtag Boogle Gang, Discord down below as well. That's it. It's been John Boogle, and see ya.